Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
Fine. First of all, welcoming all of you and thanking you for taking the time to do this. I know, especially now in a competitive job market, how challenging it is to find the right words to put on those pieces of paper that are then going to get scanned by computer systems, and then maybe a human will look at it, and just knowing how long should it be, how far should I go? So many questions in terms of writing your own story. So today I'm going to give you a lot of tips around do's and don'ts to help guide you in that sense. I also just going to be giving you some samples of how to power up what you may already have. So most of the time we're going to be looking at a PowerPoint. I will come out sometimes and just talk to you, but we have reserved a chunk of time at the end where we're going to do just live Q&A. I'll do live coaching, live resume answering. We'll just get deep. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I will ask as many of you as possible that are able to be on camera, be on camera. I love seeing your faces, but also pay attention to the chat. I'll be asking some questions from time to time, or maybe sharing links with you to get some more resources. So make sure that you have access to that. Sound good to everyone? Fantastic, thank you. We're gonna talk about creating an effective resume today. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about who I am, just so you have an idea of who it is that's kind of speaking to you, where I'm getting this information from. I've actually been a career and business coach for the past 13 years. Most of that time I've been doing this full time. There was a brief period of time where I actually took on a management role in a very large, beautiful company. But for the most part, 13 years doing this, working with corporate professionals, C-suite executives, business owners, helping them develop their stories and how to market themselves in a way that allows them to connect to the right people for the right opportunities. So in some cases, that may have been, finding that next great opportunity and landing a job that you love and pays you what you're worth. Paying you what you're worth is just such, there's a different feeling when you walk into a job and you know that they acknowledge you in all the ways that they can. And then on the business side, I've been working with business owners to help them achieve what I call joyful profitability. So this is a systematic way of building and operating their business so that they're not killing themselves, but they are reaching the ideal client that's able and willing to work with them and to engage their services, and that's going to be actionable and accountable to create amazing results, often life-changing results. I had the incredible privilege back in 2018 to write a book that became a bestseller, and that is Suck It Up, Buttercup, 10 Tough Love Strategies to Get You Off Your Butt and Making Money. It was primarily geared to business owners, but also had a lot of golden nuggets for my career professionals and executives. My upcoming book, Permission to Dominate, is going to be released this fall. And that's a book about 7 permissions that we can ourselves give ourselves, liberate ourselves, shatter limits so that we can take on greater challenges, greater fulfillment, both in our careers and in our businesses. And as part of all of this, I get to do events like this, and sometimes I get to do them with friends like Suzanne and Cassandra, and other times I'm on very big stages in front of a lot of people. I've had the incredible honor of speaking to audiences across 43 different countries over the past few years, and that has been transformational for me and just incredibly rewarding. I'm just so honored to do the work that I do. In between, somehow, I actually managed to put together some online courses. So at times, people are working directly with me. Other times, people want to work just kind of on their own. They want to do it at their own pace. So I am available on Teachable, and I have courses there I should be able to pop a link for you into the chat. So let me go ahead and find that. There it is. And I'll pop that in the chat so that if you have an interest in looking at that, you're welcome to review some of the options that are available. And keep an eye on that chat, everyone. There's a lot of just amazing how many people are sharing their LinkedIn. So the great way to connect. We'll talk a little bit about how connecting is important. Suzanne, can you still see my PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm going to walk through, and we're going to join into our information. I do want to let you know, I know sometimes it's helpful if you have either the slides or maybe a summary. So I will gladly send you some follow-up information. The link is there at the top, and I'll also pop that into the chat real quick. So let me grab that as well. So if you'd like any of that additional information, you're just welcome to go ahead and pop your information into this link, and it will give you access to more. More is always good. Almost there. Okay. All right. And our Suzanne, thumbs up. We're back on the PowerPoint. Okay, great. What is a resume? We don't really think to ask that question, but it really has become important in modern times. It used to be a few years back that a resume was really just a descriptive. It was about the types of things you were called to do in your job. It mirrored, for the most part, a job description. That has changed significantly over the past 5 years, and especially this year as the market has become more competitive. A resume is no longer just a list of things you did or were supposed to do. A resume is a powerful marketing document that is meant to create evidence of your value. It is meant to make it crystal clear that you have both the qualifications to meet the job, but also that you have created results. And the featuring of these results in your story is becoming more and more critical. And what tends to happen is we have a tendency to go back, and when we're in a transition, we dust off an old resume, probably haven't touched it in years, and just add our new opportunities on there, the latest things that we've done, maybe update our address and email address and think that we're good. And what we're doing is that we're adding to something old. And we're usually using formats and language that is no longer aligned to what employers expect today, and are no longer making you competitive. You'll hear me say throughout this presentation that the wrong resume can make you invisible in the job market. And that's painful. It's painful when you're spending the time to look through and to make applications, submit applications, you're submitting your resume, you're sending them out, and it's crickets. There's a whole lot of conversation that we could have around this idea of how you job search. And I know for many of us, one of the knee-jerk reactions is to job search online, and that's okay. There are other job search methods. I know Suzanne and I are really big fans of circumventing the online arena if possible. But the truth of the matter is that in today's market, you probably are going to have to do some kind of digital application. And if you do, you need your resume to make you visible as opposed to invisible. So let's start deep diving a little bit more into what that all looks like. I first of all want to make sure that you know that it is absolutely possible to land a phenomenal opportunity even in today's market. Millions of people lost their jobs over the past few months. That's a reality that we can't change. But the truth of the matter is that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people have also been hired, and some of them into phenomenal jobs. I had a client who worked in IT. He was ready for leadership. We worked on his resume to revamp his language to really showcase that readiness. And within 30 days, he had landed his first salary exempt position. So that's someone entering into leadership. I also had a chief financial officer with 15 years of experience who was downsized and then found just an incredible opportunity with a startup, a well-funded startup where there's an incredible future for her, where she not only is the chief financial officer, she also has equity now in the company as well. So amazing opportunities are out there, regardless whether you're kind of at entry level, mid-level, trying to get into leadership, or you're already in the C-suite. So just carry that with you, that it may take time, it's going to take effort, there'll be ups and downs, but you will land if you stay persistent. I want to talk a little bit about some of the language that we hear about in all this. And there's so much conversation around this thought about applicant tracking systems and human reviews. So I just want to give you just a brief overview. An applicant tracking system is looking at format, keywords, qualifications, and match rate, right? It's not a thinking, although there's a bunch of AI now involved in these, but for the most part, this is not a judgment against you. Your resume is either formatted and written in a way that it's going to match what the applicant tracking systems are looking for, or it's not. So a lot of the times we're feeling deep, profound emotions of rejection, but the truth is that we just haven't learned how to get around the technology. Right? The next layer of examination that our resumes go through now get in front of a human. Now they're looking just to make sure, okay, are you truly qualified? Do you look interesting? Do you seem worthy of speaking to them? Does it look like there's a culture match? Again, they're looking for people they want to work with. Are you contactable? And what kind of impression are they getting around your salary? So let me talk about this last two bullets. I know for some of you this is going to seem insane, but I have literally seen resumes, and not like 10 years ago, like every year, that have no contact information. I know some of you like staring at the screen like, what did she just say? Yeah, absolutely. You have to give them a way to reach you. You might be the best person for the job, but there has to be contact information on there. And I'll talk about what that needs to look like. A salary impression. Here's the danger of a poor resume, an outdated resume, or a resume that just is not looking polished. You may land the job, but you will never know how many thousands of dollars less you were offered because the impression your resume made wasn't all that great. Your resume begins the impression of how much they want you and how much they're willing to pay for you. So I absolutely recommend that you follow as much as you can of what I'm going to tell you. And frankly, if you reach a point where you're frustrated or you just don't really have the time, maybe you're already working and writing a resume is not your thing, then whether you work with me or work with another coach, find a professional that can design a high-end resume for you, because it can make differences of thousands of dollars in the kind of offer that you get. I'm going to talk about some ingredients to a winning resume. I'll give you an overall summary. Then we're going to start deep diving into some of these different pieces. So the first thing you want, a little bit we hinted at this, is the modern ATS compliant format. Applicant tracking systems. Data in the job market indicates that anywhere between 70 to 90% of employers are using some kind of ATS. They have some kind of a computer system that's going to do the first cut as to who gets to see a human or what resumes even get passed on to a human. So you got to make sure that you're aligned with some really specific guidelines around that. You want clear contact information. You want a powerful professional branding section. So we're going to talk about how it's those old objective statements, they're gone. Now it's about your professional brand. And it doesn't matter if this is your first job ever. You need a professional brand, and I'll talk to you about building that. Logical, clear, recent career history. If you have been working for 30 years, you probably have a lot of pride in everything that you've done. But honestly, employers want the last 10 to 15 years. And sometimes trying to go beyond that can create issues of ageism. And ageism is very real and alive in the job market, as much as we would prefer that it not be. 10 to 15 years tends to be sufficient for most people. MOEs, moments of evidence, is one of my favorite things. It's the most powerful thing you can do on your resume. We're going to have some exercises around MOEs, and then relevant education and professional development, all the kind of the extras that can kind of wrap up a resume. So there's a lot, and you just got to take it section by section, little by little, and just work on these different elements to put together a document that truly represents your unique value proposition and why you should be the most compelling candidate for their role. We're gonna do a little experiment. We're gonna do a 6-second test. So I'm gonna show you a resume. I'm gonna count to 6, and then I'm gonna come away from the screen and I'm gonna ask you some questions about that resume. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm gonna ask you to put in the chat, could you tell clearly what that person does for a living? Or what's your best guess about what that person does for a living? If it wasn't clear, just say not clear. If you have a guess, just put a guess. No titles, no contact, not clear, just 15 years of experience. Maybe an executive assistant, not clear. You know, that's an interesting one, Suzanne. Executive assistant is actually an executive. Yeah, that's how, right? That's how bad that is. Not clear, so something about client satisfaction. Yeah, too much info. All right. So I'm going to show you a similar one, and we're going to do another 6-second test. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Person number 2. What does professional number 2 do for a living? Consumer banking, consumer banking, marketing around banking, banking executive, consumer banking, right? A lot more targeted, a lot clearer. The first example that I showed you is typically what I get from clients. Sometimes they look much better, but often they look like that or worse. The second one is an example of a resume that I did. It had a lot. I mean, I'll go back, I'll show you. It was pretty wordy, but this person was pretty wordy. And sometimes you got to match personalities. Sometimes they're less wordy. Sometimes they're highly formatted, sometimes they're less. But I will tell you that everything that has been achieved on that resume was done in a way that was as ATS compliant as possible. And this resume worked. This person landed a really phenomenal job. So I'm going to talk you through some of the do's and don'ts and kind of the impressions that you just got from that. And it starts with something as simple as the font that you choose. Depending what age you are, you might have a really big, strong relationship with Times New Roman. And I'm going to encourage you to build some new relationships. Sans serif, these fonts that don't have any of the squigglies at the end, simpler, straight letters are typically better absorbed by applicant tracking systems. There's all kinds of ATS, but some of them are still very OCR, scanning based, and these squiggly little lines can sometimes confuse them. So these Arial, Calibri, Century Gothic, Verdana, Tahoma tend to be better fonts to use. They're cleaner, they're more digital, they're just easier for people to read. These two resumes they look great, right? Like at first glance, you look at this and you're like, there's nothing wrong with this. The problem is that these are built with templates. And I see all the time people talking online about, oh, Just go to this website. You'll have your resume done in 15 minutes. Just fill out their template. And it like, right, Suzanne, like it crushes our soul to see this. First of all, you're probably not going to tell the best story of your entire career in 15 minutes, right? Like interviews are not even 15 minutes, much less trying to put together a document. But the problem with these interesting looking templates is that they will not pass ATS compliance. These documents are using things like boxes and tables and all sorts of things that just do not serve you. And I'll go through a list of those. But here's another one that a client, this is a real resume somebody sent to me. It's black and white, which looks outdated and old school. And look, you don't need to have a riot of color. You know, if you're in a conservative industry, then maybe just a couple lines of blue or green, great. If you're in marketing or sales, then you probably want to dazzle it up a little bit, but you have to be careful because the whole other end of just a black and white template is a really decked out graphic design resume. Now that can be a great handed in type of situation, like you take that with you to the interview, but most of those graphic design style of resumes are not going to make it through applicant tracking system. So again, causing you invisibility in the job market, even if you have a beautiful document. So you got to find the right measure of what looks good. You want to mix the skills of personal attributes. You want to make sure that it's not abrupt and cold like this is. Like this doesn't even define who this person is. It just went directly into some skills, and then it went into a functional style of resume. So some of you might be thinking that a functional style of resume might be the way to go. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes it is, but it's rare, even if you have a gap in your employment. A lot of times people try to use functional resumes to hide gaps or to kind of hide non-industry type experience. But for the most part, it just sometimes creates issues with ATS, which is built to read reverse chronology, and you're not giving enough information. So your resume is meant to have a rich conversation with its audience. It's meant to be compelling. It's meant to endear them. Like you want to grab it, like they really want to talk to you. It doesn't have to tell the entire story of your career. It just has to open the door to an interview. That's all the resume is meant to do. Open the door to an interview. So you want it to be a little bit warmer, a little bit more inviting, right? This particular example that I'm showing here is missing a profile statement. We'll look at what that means. There are no job descriptions, and that's problematic. Content really matters. There are no achievements, MOEs, MOs, your moments of evidence. And this has text in boxes, tables, columns, and headers. And guess what? ATS doesn't like text in boxes, tables, columns, or headers. So if you get a finicky, even a mildly finicky ATS, it's just going to throw it out. Like if it can't process it, if it can't parse it out correctly, it's just going to throw out the resume. Doesn't matter if you were perfect for the job. So much of this rejection that we're feeling in the job market is completely impersonal. No one made a judgment that they didn't want you. The computer just couldn't read you. All coming down to the premise of the moral of the story is avoid the templates. Use start with a plain Microsoft Word document and build from there. It can be simple, just like this sample here. Very, very simple, right? This one is still one page. It's the same person, by the way. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This one is not. I replaced it. But it's same style. So one page. This one has better visual impact. There is a profile statement, and it can even be a title call out. It's a profile statement, not an objective statement. We're going to talk about those next. There's a skill inventory. These are rich, really rich keywords. There's career history. There are achievements. And here's my guidance. This is the simplest way to put together a resume, is to have your job title. And look, there are different styles where you put the job title first, or the employer name first, or the city. Like, you can vary that some. I like to start with job title, then typically go employer name, then the dates, but that can vary. Typically, as long as they're parsed out, ATS can handle it. Here's where it gets really important. The paragraph should be descriptive of you in the role. And let me say that again, because it's very important how I said that. The paragraph is descriptive of you in the role. So it's not just a description of the job. It's a little bit more personalized. It's what you did, what you were accountable for, what you were entrusted with. What's the scope of work that you had? The bullets that follow are then success stories, achievements, measurable results, right? A lot of times there's a lot of confusion on resumes, and the bullets are also highly descriptive, but the worst part is when the bullets, or really any part of your resume, is super, super vague. Vague doesn't get you hired. Specifics get you hired. Compelling stories get you hired. So these bullets are where you will put your MOs, your moments of evidence. You have the education segment. Sometimes there could be technology in there. There could be community contributions, professional associations. All of that can be available there as well. Notice that in this resume, even though there's some mild formatting to it, none of it has been done with tables, boxes, or columns. Super, super simple. And you're better off to have something simple that's well organized and works than to have something that's way over formatted and then can't be processed. So a few more things, and we're going to dive into content a bit. We're going to talk about avoid abbreviations and acronyms. This is one of the one that is just overwhelming. I can't tell you how many times I see, actually I'm looking at a comment here from Suzanne, so let me mention, yeah, no columns at all. Let me go back a second, I want to show you this. So if you have skills, either separate them with a little slash or separate them with a comma, like make it simple. I know it looks super nice and fancy when you have like 2 or 3 columns worth of skills, but those columns don't get processed by the ATS system. So you think you're doing something fancy and nice looking, but it doesn't really work. Now you could have, like somebody's just asking, can you, sometimes I'll put like organizational skills or IT skills if you want to separate out systems versus professional attributes, you can. Just use 2 separate lines, but definitely don't use any columns. Just don't invite trouble, especially now. Like if you really need to land a job, don't take any risk with your resume. Beware having too much history. You heard me say it before. Be careful, don't go beyond 10 to 15 years. Sometimes you can get away with 18, 20 years, but this thing of having 30, 40 years on your, you just have to let it go. You have to let it go. Employers are just not, you know, they might be somewhat interested, but it's just not going to be, if you're relying on something you did 35 years ago to get you a job today, that's a long haul. They're just not going to consider that recent experience. And as you're writing this history, again, avoid those abbreviations and acronyms. You think that, you know, that everybody's going to know what it means. Nobody knows what it means. And here's the biggest danger. The first layers of review are either the ATS or typically a junior level HR person. If those two systems, the system and that person, can't figure out what those abbreviations mean, guess what your resume is going? In the decline pile. And you'll never know because they'll never tell you. Because they don't spend the time to send out, most companies, I wish they would, but they're not going to spend the time to send out 300, 500, decline emails. You'll only hear when you get to the next place. And sometimes it's because you use so many abbreviations, they couldn't tell what the heck you were talking about. Write them all out. Do not include reference statements. And as if possible, avoid plain black and white. Just give me a hint of color, a hint of color. Imagine this. Imagine that an HR manager is going to go talk to a hiring manager and has a stack of 50 resumes, and they drop them. And every single one of them is just a sea of black and white, but there's one that has this nice blue outline. Guess what their eyes are going to see first? And as they're shuffling through all those 50 and sometimes hundreds of resumes and sifting through, guess which one is going to break their concentration? Because it's going to be different than the sea of other resumes that they're seeing. Disruption. You're looking for the right kind of format that meets with ATS, but is also disruptive to the human eye. Everyone following me so far? Give me a thumbs up or put yes into the chat. All right, I see some thumbs up. That's great. Yeah. What color to pop? Look, I have been very creative with color. If it's conservative, look, and Suzanne, if you disagree with this, you can welcome to jump in. But most parts I stick to blues and greens. But I have done purples, I have done golds, I have done reds, and they've matched that person's personality. Because, you know, look, culture match is important. So if somebody has a really vivacious, bubbly personality, they're really creative and inventive, then I'm going to infuse the resume with that, because ultimately I want them to work somewhere where that's appreciated. So as long as it's not going to disrupt their resume being seen, if they're a super colorful person, I'm not going to tone them down too much, right? Because I want them to get interviews with the right people. Suzanne says, I deal with black, white, and gray, but I deal with a lot of IT people. Yeah, industry matters. You know, if I work with all across the industries, and when I'm dealing with finance or very conservative companies, I make it more conservative. But when somebody's in marketing and like creative design, I'm like, you know, chief marketing officers and stuff like that, then I'm going to go a little bit bolder. I'm going to walk you through a few things. And this kind of starts from the beginning of the resume, kind of goes down in further into the resume. And some of these things may seem so simple, but they're huge. And these are real world example people. I have definitely gotten people sending me their resumes where on their literal resume to send to potential employers, their email addresses are big boy in boots, big hunkers. Y'all need to have some thought process around what you're sharing. This is your professional resume. Get yourself a really clear email address, preferably Gmail. Avoid the old platforms like AOL, Hotmail, MSN. Just get yourself a Gmail account. Keep it as simple as possible. If your name is already taken, get creative. Maybe add something before or after that is not your year of birth. And just get yourself something simple. And then please, please, remember to check that email account. I have had a client in the past that set up a brand new email account for her job search. She actually had done that even before she engaged with me. So like she was gung-ho. And like 4 weeks later, realized, she's like, I'm not getting any results. I'm not getting any results. Nobody's contacted me, and realized she never went into that email account. And when she did, she had like 10 different emails from potential employers wanting to contact her. So whichever account it is that you choose to use, make sure it's something that you can keep your eyes on. Are we agreed in that? Can everybody type in agreed? And I just need that commitment from you. Yes, this is true. So Suzanne is saying, yeah, I'm talking about accent colors, like maybe a couple of lines that are done with without using text boxes, but the font color, I would keep it black. Keep the font color black. Thank you, Suzanne. Great point. All right, here we go. Thank you for all the agreement. I appreciate that. I love an interactive audience. Okay, so now we're going to get into this concept of objective statements. So let me just make this abundantly clear. Objective statements are dead. Do not use an objective statement. And some of you maybe you're not familiar with an objective statement. So let me clarify. In the past, we used to say things on their resume. I used to have a resume like this, a little while ago. To obtain a role in a growing company when I can apply my 29 years of experience in marketing, right? And sometimes it said clever little things like I want to roll in a growing company where I can apply my skills and, have opportunities for advancement. It was very me oriented. But see, the problem is that employers don't care. I know that sounds a little brutal, but for the most part, first of all, let's just be real. Who wants a low-paying job, a low-paying dead-end job with a company that's going nowhere? Who's looking for that? No hands, no volunteers. Nobody's looking for the dead-end job. Okay, so we don't really need to say that we want a great job, we're appreciated. That's not the point of the resume. The point of this section now, what's been taken over, is a professional profile, which starts with some kind of introductory statement, your branding statement. So think of, and these are the same people here, person number one, person number two. It's actually the same person. Sales and marketing professional with 15 years of success cultivating trust and presenting winning proposals that result in long-term client relationships, effective in engaging C-suite decision makers to close high revenue contracts. Which one do you think is going to get interviewed? One or two? Put that in the chat, one or two. Who do you think is going to get the biggest job offer? If you look at those two statements, who do you think is going to make more money? So the second statement begins to introduce the person, talks about their strengths, and is densely packed with keywords. Now, you have to balance yourself when it comes to keywords. You can't go through this thing where you sacrifice, you can't make it illegible just because you want to stack a bunch of keywords in there. Like, it's got to make sense to people. It's got to read, it's got to be presentable, it's got to be, good communication. But where you can, insert those keywords. That's the first start of starting to embed in people's minds that you can do what it is that they're looking for, right? So the commitment that I want from all of you is that if you have anything that resembles those outdated objective statements, that you'll spend some time really looking at how you can restate who you are, right? Start writing some of those profile statements that talk about if you have a specific role. So you're a marketing manager, you are a PMO leader. Like, if you have a specific title that you're going for, be specific. If it needs to be a little bit broader, like sales and marketing, or maybe you're in operations and project leadership, that's okay. But define what you are, who you are, and especially what you can contribute. This starts high level, and then as the resume proceeds, you're going to get deeper into details. This is a high level summary. And here's the biggest trick to this. So because you're going down the list on the resume, you're kind of going from top to bottom, you may think you have to do this first. Don't. Do it last. Write your resume first, and then come back and look at it. All right, like in this story that I've created with all my past history that I'm showing, what's the point of me? What am I looking to do in the world? What have I done? And then use that as a summary to create your profile statement. It's always what I do last, after I've told the story. It's kind of like the trailer of the movie, right? Know what the movie is first, and then write the trailer. Is everyone seeing that? Can I get some nods on that? Okay, great. A big issue with resumes these days is not having measurable achievements. And I want to talk you through some ways in which I see this and kind of give you some alternatives. This is where we start getting into Mo's, right? So here's one that these are actual live examples, so I'm just going to go through these with you. I helped manage fulfillment and shipment of daily orders. Your resume is always going to create questions, right? You want your resumes to create an appetite for people to want to learn more, but it has to give them a clear vision. You want them to ask more details. You don't want them to ask you to clarify. So this, which was a really vague statement, got converted into processed over $2,000 in retail orders per day and prepped shirts to ship to clients all over the United States. So in the same amount, same two lines, now we're talking about retail keyword, we're talking dollar amount, $2,000 a day, that adds up to over 60,000, per month. Prepped t-shirts, so now you can kind of see them in their work. They clearly have shipping experience and they've worked nationally. It tells a much more powerful story. This is how detailed I want you to get, right? Next one. Assisted with new floor plan for a retail store. Well, helped and assist are always words that bother me. What does that mean, right? So even everything that we do in the job place, in the workplace, it typically is connected to somebody else, right? We're a piece of the puzzle. So it's true that your work may have helped, it may have assisted, but I'm not looking for that on your resume. I'm looking about what you did for somebody else. I'm looking about what was the action that you did that was helpful. So bring it down to your specific contributions. Well, how did you assist? How big was the store? How many employees? Like what's the story here? We know, is this a little mom and pop or is this a giant store? I don't know. Selected by store manager to remove old inventory and create 12 clothing displays with new seasonal merchandise, right? And if you really wanted to supersize this, you can then add to this either the square footage of the store, or you can even add the fact that this contributed to exceeding sales quotas by 112%, right? Or 12%, whatever that may be, right? You can then drive this in even further. But now you've cemented what the work looked like and you've quantified it. 12 clothing displays, clearly not going to be a small thing. You're selected by the store manager. There's prestige involved with that. Inventory, big keyword. Merchandise, big keyword. Clothing displays, another seasonal. All of these in the retail industry, massive keywords. So are you seeing the difference in these? I mean, I know these are simple examples, but are you getting the gist of this? And I'm going to look for my camera people and so I can see if you're nodding. All right. Oh, I'm seeing nods. I'm seeing thumbs up. All right. Great. Thank you. All right. Let's look at a couple more. All right. Evidence-based bullets. Designed a virtual design template for the L&D team to use with their clients, delivered a consistent approach to how we trained all learners in the consulting practice. All right. Does anybody understand what that means? I mean, if you're in that world, it kind of sort of, you get it, but it was really, really bulky. And sometimes we're using words that just lead to more questions. Again, the system or junior level, entry level HR person may not know that L&D is learning and development. We don't know who the clients in here. We don't know how many of them. We don't know that the new method of learning improved the consulting practice. We don't know how success was measured. And there's one more thing here that I want all of you to be really careful about. There's one word. I'm going to put this to a test. Can anyone tell me what the danger word is in that original statement, in the black and white statement? Nope, it's not all. Nobody wants to. There? There's not that bad. You're getting close, you're getting warm. All right, I'm not going to torture you. It's the word we. Yeah, now you're nodding. The word we tells me that you're still ingrained in this. So when I see the word we or the word our, O-U-R, that's problematic. And the word we is problematic for several reasons. A, because you're still thinking of yourself as part of that organization, but who is we? Who is we in this equation? Like, am I interviewing you, or is this resume about you, or is this about a team? Like, who's we? So you got to be really careful that you, Suzanne knows, like, this is a pain point for me. Look, this is true for everyone, but especially for the women. I want you to listen very, very carefully here, because this is dangerous. Women have a tendency to use the word we and team and group and the department, to use general broad terms a lot in their resumes and in their interviews. And what happens is that women will water themselves down to the point where they are insignificant in their own stories. For the most part on a resume, you're not really going to use a whole lot of pronouns, but in your speech, you have to train yourself to use the word I. Now, you may have led the team, you may have guided the team, you may have shown the team, you have managed the team, directed the team, but it's not we and it's not our, it's I. Eileen, you're welcome. Okay. Here's one more, and then we're gonna go deeper into some other items here. Provide customer service to members, claimants, and representatives filling out an auto claim. What does it mean to provide customer service? And what are the specific actions? So this could be turned into something like calmly and patiently gather auto accident details from 75 plus customers per day, filing an insurance claim, right? It just goes deeper. It just goes deeper, and anything that's quantifiable is going to help, right? These are some simple examples. Of course, I'm normally dealing with examples that are dealing with, you know, EBITDA and all kinds of like really high-end executive type of words and achievements. But no matter where you are in your career level, there's always a way to bring that down to a higher impact statement that's really, really specific. Provide customer service to members, claimants, and representatives is anybody in that role. Calmly and patiently gather auto accident details from 75 plus customers per day is now showing yourself in that role. Always put yourself on that resume. It should, your resume, when I see resume, people bring me resumes, that resume, I could easily turn it around, like hundreds of thousands of other people could use that exact same resume because it's so big. When your resume is so specific that nobody else on this planet could use it, then it's valuable. Then it's doing its job. So we've talked about all this concept of these achievements, of these contributions, and I like to call them moments of evidence, these MOs. They're specific, they have details, they should be detailed and brief. They're success stories. And it doesn't have to be the entire, you're not writing novels, you're writing 1 or 2 lines to capture the essence of these success stories. About the new marketing campaign that you launched that allowed you to increase market share by 5% in a 6-month period, right? It's about going out there and maybe you trained a sales team to build greater rapport and saw conversion rates go up by 3 percentage points in a 3-week period, right? It's what are the measurable results? What are the outcomes? What was the situation? What was the action? What was the result? And everywhere you can, how is it relevant to what you're pursuing? And this relevant is important because in your past, you will have done a ton of things. Even in one job, you will have done so many different things. You don't have to mention everything. The point isn't to give them a play-by-play. The point is to be targeted in what you mentioned, to select those success stories so that they're showcasing the skills and the achievements most relevant to where you want to go next. So if you had a very diverse role and you did some project management and you did some operations, but you also did some financial stuff, and you're looking to go deeper into the financial industry, then you're going to want to highlight more of your financial achievements and those in that role than any of the other stuff. You want to really curate your history. It doesn't mean that any of those other things you did don't ever get mentioned, but you've got to know, you got to go fishing. You got to know the right bait to use. You can't go fishing for saltwater fish in a pond. Like, you've got to know you got to make it appetizing for what you're looking for. And the beauty of building an evidence-based resume is that it begins to prepare you for powerful, impactful, memorable interviews. When you start writing your resume in a way that speaks to situation, action, result, and relevance, then you're going to be better prepared to speak that in an interview environment. So just the process alone can really help. Let me look at some questions here. So Robbie, if it depends on how specific you're being in terms of your job search and how different roles may be. I am a really big fan of you create one master resume, and you may need to tweak a few words here and there. But unless you're looking for incredibly different roles, one master resume should serve you. In 13 years, I can tell you there's only been 4 times, and the most recent one being last week, that I've ever created 2 resumes for a client. And I've written hundreds of resumes. Usually one will do the job. And you may need to tweak it a little bit, but you shouldn't have to rewrite it every single time. And there's different guidance on that. Some people think you need to go really deep. But I think if you have a target, even if it's a little bit broad, you should be able to create a baseline resume that fits most needs, and then you just have to tweak it a bit, and of course, always customize your cover letter. Okay. I'm going to go over, we're kind of at the end here, so we're going to start going to Q&A soon, but I'm going to go over some resume killers, things I don't want you to do. I'm going to re-summarize for you the things I want you to do, and then we're going to do some live Q&A. So, my big pet peeve, my pain in my heart, do not use an objective statement. They're just going to age you. They're going to make you seem disconnected from the job market. Get rid of the objective statements. Don't use the serif font, use the sans serif. You're going to look more modern, fresher. Avoid templates at all costs. Be careful about the email addresses that you're using. Make sure that you're not writing a vague resume and that you're not saying, I was responsible for the things. People love to say I was responsible for, but you never actually told, well, did you do it? I know you were responsible for it, but did you do it? How did you do it? What happened as a result of you doing it? I want the punchline. Be careful of abbreviations and acronyms. Beware having too much history. Don't get too attached to your glory days. 10 to 15 years, maybe a little bit extra. Get rid of that thing that says references provided upon request. Like, they know that. Like, every employer in the world is going to assume if they ask you for references, you're going to do it. So get rid of this statement. You're wasting space. Use a black font for sure. But if you have a little bit of highlight color, that usually will make your resume pop. So to summarize a lot of what we've been talking about, you want a modern, fresh, nice looking, crisp ATS compliant format. You want good contact information. I'll mention here, sometimes I get asked, do I need to put my entire address? Suzanne, let me know if you have a different take on that, but I actually haven't put an entire address on anybody's resume in years. City, state, maybe a zip, but usually city, state is enough, and sometimes not even that. And especially now, where everybody's working remotely, it's becoming less and less of a thing. Yeah, so I put just enough on there, but I don't usually put there's no need for them to have their entire contact information, but you should have a good phone number and a good email address. You want to really kick it off with a powerful profile segment, And then you want to follow that up with strong evidence-based history, 10 to 15 years. And then whatever relevant education and professional development, maybe some associations, community work that you can fit into that. If you can fit it in to 2 pages, max. 1 page, 2 page, not 3. Very rare does somebody need to go to 3. It has happened. I have seen, I never thought I'd live to see the day, I've seen a 14-page resume. No one's gonna read a 14-page resume. Don't do it, 2 pages. So this is a reminder that if you want some of the bonus materials that I'll be sharing, that's the link to use for that. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share. You can take a quick picture of that, a screenshot. I will put it in the chat. So I'm gonna stop the share.
So Liz, we have everybody here. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Loved it. I think that so many great takeaways. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, for coming and helping us get our resumes up to shape. So as always, I appreciate it.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.